what really gets into it, and what I really think that you're talking about here, is the notion of soteriological pluralism. That is, that people can be saved from other traditions. Now, this is something that is has a very interesting history in our tradition. I mean, people are surprised if you go in and you actually find out that Ibn Taymiyyah is one of the ones who held that eventually everyone is taken out of hell. When he was criticized roundly by other people for going against what they considered to be the ijma' or the consensus of the tradition for that. Tajuddin Subki criticized him for this. Now, at the same time, there are others, in Al-Ghazali and his Faisal al-Tafrika, he probably goes the furthest in his position regarding the potential for people who are still living in other religious traditions to actually achieve salvation. And to kind of break it down in simplistic terms, we don't have a lot of time here, but we could actually do a whole lecture just on Al-Ghazali's theory on this, and Sherman Jackson would be the better person for that than me. But is that he's saying that so long as one has not heard the call of Islam, that one can actually, in a sense, still be saved. A Jew or a Christian living somewhere, and he mentions the Byzantine Empire, and often these other parts, that if they haven't heard the full call, they can still be saved. And one of the things that he says within that is that even at times, if one hears the distorted message, so for example, right now you hear about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Quran on Fox News, you're probably not going to become a Muslim. I mean, you got to have like some kind of amazing firasa. If when you hear about it on Fox News, you're like, yes, I mean, that's like, you got to be a prophet yourself if that's gonna break through. MashaAllah. So anyway, so this is one of the ideas that he has. Now, the point is that you bring in this, we could talk about Ibn al-Arabi's ideas regarding this, and Rashid Rida and others, and Shah Waliullah is somewhat close to Al-Ghazali in his understanding, but there are lots of different understandings of this within our tradition. The fact that there are all of these different understandings of it shows us the question's not settled. All right? It is a question that is open for discussion. There's not just one single perception of it. We have put within the study Quran ways in which that question could be contemplated in relation to particular verses, such as the famous verse 262 and 3199 and verses along these lines. We've addressed that in places. We haven't said that that's the way that one has to do it. In those places, we put the other options that you have within what one might call the mainline tafsir tradition. So I think that we have properly represented what the classical tradition says regarding this and made it clear that there are other ways that this could potentially be approached. And it is a question that by the way, this is one of the things that we need to think about. Ismail Faruqi said that one of the things that really distinguishes Islam from other religions and distinguishes the Quran from other scriptures is that it commands those who follow this revelation to believe that other prophets and other religions came from God and that they had revelations. This is an amazing feature of this religion. And it's something that we actually have. It's something we have to offer the modern world. We have something to offer the modern world in how do you address the problem of religious diversity in a way that doesn't make one particular religion have to reign supreme at all times over others and allows for interaction between the different religions when it is our actions. Our actions are what you call, look, when it comes down to it in the Quran, basically the question of soteriological efficacy, what I think the Quran is telling us is that's above your pay grade. God's going to distinguish between them on the day of judgment regarding that wherein they differed. God's going to distinguish between you on the day of judgment regarding that wherein you differed. فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. So compete with one another in good deeds. Or جَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Argue with them in the most beautiful manner. Don't go out there and say kufr. And stuff. That's not useful. All right? And it really isn't something. One of the things is people think that if you do this, somehow you're holding this guard and people are going to leave the religion of Islam. Do you know how many people, for every person that we celebrate coming in through the front door of the mosque to take Shahada, we're ignoring the other person who's leaving out the back door? And one of the reasons is because there are a lot of issues that we aren't answering in a way that is sufficient for our community. And this is a door that I think we shouldn't be afraid to open. We don't have to agree, but we can start to come to some answers that actually reply to the exigencies of the day in which we live.